In 1930, a 4-year-old girl in Delhi started talking about her husband. Not a pretend husband, a real one. She named him. She named their children. She described their house in a town she had never visited. She described how she died. A committee appointed by Mahatma Gandhi took her to that town. She recognized streets she had never walked. She recognized people she had never met. She led them to a well. She said she had hidden money there in a previous life. The well existed. The money was gone, but the well was exactly where she said it would be. Science has never explained what happened to Shanti Devi. It just documented it, very carefully. Let's establish something before we go any further. This video is not going to tell you reincarnation is real. It's also not going to tell you it isn't. What it's going to do is show you what happens when serious scientists, medical doctors, psychiatrists, researchers with peer-reviewed methodologies and university affiliations decide to stop stepping around this question and walk straight into it. Because some of them did. And what they found didn't fit anywhere clean. The man who walked furthest into it was named Ian Stevenson. He was a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia. Not a mystic. Not a believer in anything he couldn't document. In 1960, he published a paper in the Journal of the American Society for Psychical Research, reviewing cases of children who claimed to remember previous lives. The response from the scientific community was somewhere between dismissal and silence. Stevenson didn't stop. He spent the next 40 years traveling the world. India, Sri Lanka, Lebanon, Alaska, Brazil, Nigeria, collecting cases. By the time he died in 2007, he had documented over 2,500 of them. Not anecdotes. Case files, with interviews, cross-references, verified details, and his own assessment of alternative explanations, fraud, fantasy, family coaching for each one. His methodology was simple and rigorous. Find a child claiming to remember a previous life before any investigation had begun. Document the specific claims. Then investigate whether those claims matched a real deceased individual. In the strongest cases, the child had never had any contact, direct or indirect, with the family of the person they claimed to have been. No shared geography. No mutual acquaintances. No possible route for the information to have traveled. In roughly 1,200 of his 2,500 cases, the previous personality was identified and verified. That's not a fringe result. That's a 48% verification rate across 40 years of fieldwork. Stevenson never claimed this proved reincarnation. He claimed it was the most parsimonious explanation for data that had no other clean home. Shanti Devi was one of his most documented cases. She was born in Delhi in 1930. At age 4, she began telling her parents about a previous life in Mathura, a city 145 kilometers away she had never visited. She named her husband Kedarnath Chobe. She described their house. She described the color of the rooms. She named the children she had born. She described the complications during childbirth that killed her. Her parents, alarmed, wrote to a man in Mathura, matching her description. He wrote back. Everything she had said matched. He was real. The house was real. The children were real. The circumstances of his wife's death matched exactly. A committee of 15 people, including journalists, a member of the Indian National Congress, and eventually Mahatma Gandhi himself, took Shanti Devi to Mathura in 1935. She was 5 years old. She guided them through streets she had never walked. She recognized her former mother-in-law at the train station before anyone introduced them. She led the group to a house and described changes that had been made since her previous life changes that were confirmed. She walked to a corner of a courtyard and said she had buried money there. The earth was dug up. The money itself was gone. Her former husband admitted he had removed it, but the hiding spot was exactly where she said it was. In a house she had never entered. In a city she had never visited. In a life she was not supposed to remember. Then there's James Leininger. He was born in Louisiana in 1998. At age 2, he began having violent nightmares. Screaming, thrashing, words his parents couldn't initially understand. When they pieced together what he was saying, it was this: airplane crash, little man can't get out. His parents assumed it was a normal childhood fear until the details started arriving. He named the plane a Corsair. He named the aircraft carrier it launched from the Natoma. He named a fellow pilot who had died Jack Larson. He said he had been shot down over Iwo Jima. He said his name had been James. His parents, not believers in reincarnation, began researching. The USS Natoma Bay was a real escort carrier that served in the Pacific during World War II. It lost one pilot over Iwo Jima. His name was James Houston Jr. He flew a Corsair. Jack Larson was a real pilot who served aboard the same carrier and survived the war. James Leininger was 2 years old when he started providing these details. 2 years old. His case was investigated by multiple researchers. It was the subject of a book published in 2009 that included documentation from the Natoma Bay Veterans Association men who had served with James Houston, who confirmed the details the child had provided. Nobody has explained how a 2-year-old in Louisiana knew the name of a World War II pilot who died before his parents were born. And then there is Dorothy Eady. Dorothy was born in London in 1904. At age 3, she fell down a staircase. The doctor who arrived pronounced her dead. An hour later, she was alive. After that, nothing was the same. She became consumed by ancient Egypt. Not in the way children become interested in things. In the way people recognize something they have lost. She wept in front of Egyptian exhibits. She told her parents she needed to go home. She began having dreams of a columned temple surrounded by gardens. Dreams so specific she could draw the layout from memory. In 1954, she moved to Egypt. She learned hieroglyphics. She was eventually employed by the Egyptian Antiquities Organization, working alongside professional Egyptologists who described her knowledge of unpublished, unexcavated details as inexplicable. She identified herself as a woman named Bentreshit, a temple priestess who had lived during the reign of Pharaoh Sety I around 1300 BC. At the Temple of Sety I in Abydos, she pointed to areas of the grounds that she said contained a garden that appeared in none of the available historical records at the time. Excavation later confirmed the garden existed, exactly where she said it would be. Dorothy Eady, who by then called herself Sety, lived in Abydos for the rest of her life. She worked. She was respected by the Egyptologists around her. She died in 1981. She had asked to be buried in Egyptian soil. She was. So what do we do with this? Ian Stevenson spent 40 years trying to answer that question scientifically. His work has been continued by Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia, who has added hundreds of additional cases and brought modern research tools to the methodology. Tucker published research in 2013 showing that children with the strongest cases, the most verified, the most specific, tended to describe violent or unexpected deaths in their previous lives. Deaths that left something unfinished. Neither Stevenson nor Tucker claimed proof. Both acknowledged that the cases could theoretically be explained by fraud, by cryptomnesia, the unconscious absorption of forgotten information, or by as yet unknown psychological mechanisms. But both also acknowledged that in the strongest cases, none of those explanations held up cleanly under examination. The data exists. 2,500 documented cases. Children who knew things they shouldn't know. A woman who pointed to a garden that wasn't supposed to be there. A 2-year-old who named a dead pilot. A 5-year-old who found a hidden well in a city she had never visited. The honest answer, the one that Stevenson himself gave after 40 years, is that we don't know. Not with certainty. Not in either direction. What we do know is this. Every culture in human history, without exception, has developed some form of belief in life after death. Not most cultures. Everyone. Separated by oceans, by centuries, by language and geography, and everything that should make convergence impossible. They all arrived at the same place. That might mean nothing. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We find meaning in coincidence. We build stories around fear. Or it might mean that across 300,000 years of human experience, something kept happening that nobody could explain. And the only way to live with it was to build it into the story of what we are. The cases are still being documented. The children are still being born. And the well in Mathura is still there. Exactly where a 5-year-old said it would be. In a life she wasn't supposed to remember.